Good morning. This is Eric Kampmann, and this is Sunrise. I'm with Chuck Davis, author of The Bold Christian. And today I want to talk a little bit, Chuck, about a decision you made in your life about going to Mali in Africa, which was not something that you were planning to do, but something that happened to you. And we've been talking about the opposition of the world, but you went into a predominantly Muslim world, and you were there for 10 years. And just tell a little bit about your experiencing in what for most people would be a very foreign kind of experience, and what you what you drew out of that experience.
Well, I'd have to say it was foreign for me too. Living in the majority world, Mali was the sixth poorest country in the world. There were a lot of shifts that our family had to make, and some life decisions that were not comfortable for us. But it was out of a sense of calling. I always had this sense that God's hand was on my life, that I was not to live ultimately for my own gain. And some people refer to it as being called to vocational ministry. But I always thought it was going to be as a pastor. That's the sphere that I understood. But it was in a trip to Mali with some men from a church that I pastored that God grabbed my heart about the possibility of going to Mali. And what drove it for me is that, as you said, Mali is 90% Muslim, but many of them have been told things about Jesus that aren't true. They haven't been told the full story. And as I looked around where I lived in New Jersey at that time, there were many churches telling people about the right way to Jesus. And in Mali, there were fewer opportunities for people to hear that. And so I heard that as God's call on my life to go. And we made decisions of leaving what was comfortable and successful in the context in which we lived and going to Mali to live among the Malian people. What did I take away from that is my whole life was transformed. When you live with people who have a different culture and who approach life from a different angle, if you allow yourself to be open, you'll learn things about them that are blind spots in your own view of the world. And so my whole understanding of God and the Word of God and what it means to be on mission with God was radically transformed through that process. And during that time, I grew in my sense of understanding of spiritual authority because we came up against some real opposition. There was social pressure for people not to follow Christ. There was direct persecution in talking about Christ. There was a sense that the kingdom of darkness was not happy that we were there because we were pressing into some of its zone. So out of that experience, not only was my whole worldview transformed, I got to walk in spiritual authority at a level I wouldn't have necessarily been able to in my own context.
The reason I bring this back up, and this is actually, I'm concluding with this, is that your understanding of spiritual authority comes out of your life. It's not a textbook thing. It's not a concept of some kind. It's actually born out of the grit of living in Mali, in Africa, oftentimes in opposition, and yet walking under the authority of Jesus Christ during that entire period. And to me, it's an extraordinary life experience that you had, and you've brought to this community here in amazing ways. This is Eric Kampmann with Chuck Davis, and we have been talking about The Bold Christian.